Welcome back to SwitchCorner. After playing the beta of Vigor, it is now officially dropped on the Nintendo eShop. But is it worth the price they are asking for what is basically early access, or are you better off just waiting for the free-to-play release later in the year? That is the question we're going to be answering today, along with taking a look at the gameplay, graphics, performance, frame rate, and then of course also the monetization. How does it work? Is it expensive? And does it create an unbalanced war zone? Well, hit subscribe if you love the Switch as much as we all do here. Join our growing family, and let's get started. So gameplay then, and what we get here is a take on the Battle Royale genre at its core level. You drop into a match, you try to survive, and then you find an exit. If I had to compare this game to anything, actually, it would be the mighty Escape from Tarkov, one of the few games I personally play that's not available on the Switch. That comparison is because with Vigor, it's not about the killing or the hunting of your, opponents as such, but gathering resources and just looting. In fact, if you play this the right way, you'll rarely have a single interaction with an opponent, instead just kind of stealthing your way around one of the 8 maps. Often when I spotted an enemy, I was like weighing up the benefits. Do I engage in this firefight or simply sneak off? And most of the time, honestly, I went for the latter. Collecting resources, it's the name of the game. That's because these are key to what lies at the center of the game, and that is your home base, your shelter. What initially starts as basically a derelict building, you'll get the option to upgrade it and clean it up. To do this, so it relies on the items you're collecting and then leveraging them against the shelter upgrades, which of course then come with benefits to you as well. For example, you could use 1,288 nails, and that will allow you to upgrade and create a chopping block that rewards you with 30 materials every single hour to add to your inventory. How about the electric generator? That requires metal parts, electronics, and fuel. Bit of a more demanding build, that one, and a later development for your shelter. But once you do that, it's going to allow you to complete more upgrades at any one time. From the beginning, you're actually restricted to just one, you see, so this is absolutely essential as soon as you can open it up. The base is not only huge, meaning you have your work cut out for you though, scavenging these parts, but each upgrade then comes with a time to build. So the electric generator, for example, takes 6 real hours to complete. It means you're going to be coming back to this one for a decent length of time to come, and not just to, go on the hunt, but actually because the game's probably pushing you for maybe 30-45 days if you played it pretty much non-stop. I've got to say, the idea of collecting loot and then upgrading your base is one I personally find extremely satisfying, and it gives you that risk and reward balance, of knowing when to stop the scavenger hunt and simply escape. It's quite honestly nerve-wracking. If you are super ballsy though, each round there will be a loot drop too. Here, all remaining players basically have a choice. It will land in the battlefield and you either go for it and gain a loot box that you can take out with you, or simply avoid it, because you can pretty much guarantee there's going to be a huge amount of foot traffic. If you do go for it and you do get it though, know that every single player in the round will be notified of your location, so they very much will be chasing after you. With Vigor though, as I keep saying, you escape. This isn't last man standing, but simply knowing what you need to achieve and navigating to that nearest exit. Sure, that big building in the distance looks pretty and exciting, but why go there if you don't need anything? Then, as I say, once you are navigating to the nearest exit, you can't just stay in this game as long as you want. Like, PUBG and Fortnite, this game does feature a gas that invades the battlefield, so that is your notification that it is time to leave. Stay too long though, and you'll very much die, even if you are the last one standing. So when it comes to the equipment then, as well, the weapons, the pickups, there's actually multiple ways to get them. The obvious one, of course, is scavenge. As this goes free to play, there's going to be no doubt people that are entering this battlefield with just a knife to hand and the intention of finding what's left over from gunfights. Then there's also blueprints though. These actually allow you to construct the different weapons yourself should you, find all the necessary parts. And then finally, it's actually in the leveling up with the battle pass. Here, as you gain XP following each battle, you'll move up these ranks in turn, unlocking more and more weaponry and blueprints, but do know there is a cost involved here to take part. This battle pass will also give you the ability to get things like loot boxes, outfits, and extra resources. If this all sounds a little, slow for you though, and you just want to shoot everything in sight, I will give Vigor credit. It tries its hand at modes just for you, though I will say it's definitely been done better elsewhere before. First, as Shootout, it's a simple match where you face off against other Outlanders or players, just finding better weapons to give you that advantage, then going for the kill. Then there's elimination, and that's essentially a team-based variation of this. These modes, they are free-for-alls, and they're kind of like dumbed down versions of the core game itself, and that's really for one big reason. If you lose in these two modes, it's not a big deal. You can just move on to that next match with a random loadout. With the core experience, if you die, you lose all of your items, guns included. A pretty intense prospect when you're down to just a pistol or knife in your inventory, but that's also what makes this so damn exciting. This core mode is where it's at because of this reason. That's what makes a game like this so exciting through that risk to reward factor. But that's also, to me, where Vigor shows its biggest issues. To discuss this, let's move on to monetization and break that down. So at the beginning of each match, you're presented with this screen, and you can opt into one of 3 areas using crowns. That's the currency you'll be spending real world cash on, and you can see it in the top right corner. The first option, it allows you to make a donation towards better loot, which all players can, contribute to, they can get involved with, and that's fine. It's an interesting system, and they've clearly designed it with like this sheep mentality in mind, because it shows you all the other players doing it, all the other players spending money. It normalizes the idea of monetization by almost celebrating it. The second one then, that's the drop, and that's basically the end game. So if people are donating towards this, you're going to see better items in the loot crate you receive. The one thing I will say with this second option though is it kind of gives you a good idea of how many individuals you're going to see at that drop. So if everyone's paying into it, it's going to be an absolute bloodbath. So it might just be kind of worth fighting, and it kind of gives away the end game just a tiny bit. It's the last one though that's the problem for me. It's called insurance. If you select this, your loadout is protected, and the only thing you would lose on death is if you'd picked up the airdrop. This creates a divide in the player base, because those that have insurance can just kind of run around like idiots with no care in the world, while those that don't have insurance need to take it slow, be careful, be precise. But to me, play the game it was meant to be played. It just gives an advantage to those willing to pull out the credit card. Sure, they can't outright buy weapons, but going gung-ho in a place like this does shift the balance a little bit too much. A few things though I will say could fix it right now. First, switch it to an in-game currency so everyone gets access. That's exactly what Escape from Tarkov does, and it works really well. Also, you could do the same thing they do there, which is when you do lose your weapons, sure, you do get them back, but not immediately. You're forced to wait, let's say 24 hours. It will create the audience that Vigor is so keen to capture, and this just kind of goes against it right now. Another thing that really annoyed me with this is it's the pricing. 60 crowns, it might not sound like a lot, but 600 crowns here is somewhere in the region of 20 bucks. So yeah, 20 bucks for 10 matches with insurance. You might say that'll keep people from using it, which is a good thing, which kind of is true. But I think what's most insulting here is if you don't die, if you don't use the insurance, they still take their 60 crowns. This 60 crowns should only be taken for those that are going to, pull out their credit card, only if it's used, only if you die. Surely that would make, more sense. You could do 10 perfect matches not dying once, and that's just cost you 20 bucks. Outside of this, then for monetization, we get a battle pass. This is 20 bucks. Basically gives you access to that tier system I mentioned. It falls in line with pretty much every free to play out there. Your XP will basically grant you access to more unlocks. So like customization, loot boxes, and just other goodies. You'll get the occasional weapon in these loot boxes, but they're so random. It'd be very difficult for someone to exploit it to be, overpowered within the game, so I'm not really too worried about that. If you want to spend your cash on it, do it. I've also said throughout this review a few times now, loot boxes, and I will say you can't buy these. Only by leveling up this battle pass or by collecting them on the battlefield will you get access, so there's no kind of EA system in here. The monetization model, it's for sure not cheap, but it's also optional. That's the one thing I do like. So if you want to spend your cash on it, then by all means, absolutely your choice. The only piece is that insurance. It is right now creating an unbalanced playing field, and then it's even stealing your 60 crowns even if you don't use the damn thing. I really don't agree with that. My suggestion for the devs on this piece, take a look at Escape from Tarkov, as I've said, to see how you implement this effectively, and just stick to taking people's cash for clothing and customization items, that sort of stuff. So graphically then, this is probably my biggest issue. First, the good. When the world is pretty, it's really pretty. From small towns to snowed under locations to open lakes, they've got creative, and it's nice to have honestly a varied selection with these 8 maps. Also, that shelter location is very cool to see. You'll see it growing alongside your advancements on the battlefield, and these upgrades really do kind of look impressive. The frame rate too, it's worth knowing, is decent and very much improved from the beta, though still not perfect. It's very much stage dependent. The hub world, I was typically hovering around 25 to 26, which is fine. It's just a glorified menu, honestly. The levels then actually in-game were for the most part at 30 frames per second, with the very occasional drop to around 28. But it was the snow levels that struggle. They must really push the system, because I'd say they were averaging somewhere in the region like 26, 27. So yeah, they're clearly like leaning on that performance. It was very minor to notice though overall, honestly, and I will say this is crossplay, and Xbox seems to be producing around that same frame rate, so it makes for an even playing field when it comes to crossplay. So no real big complaints from me, though it would have been nice to have got, of course, a locked frame rate. Sadly though, there's definitely some questionable areas too. First, the minor, relatively inoffensive popping, but a whole lot of it. You're going to see it constantly, whether it's the world around you, simple details in locations, or full-on textures. It's impossible not to notice. Same thing then with pixelation. Even when it's completely loaded in, I wouldn't call it a great looking game, but it is, I'd say, serviceable. The big problem though, it's the draw distance, particularly on other enemies, you know, Outlanders. I pointed this out during the beta, and it's still the same here, and Fortnite on the Switch originally had the same problem. I'm not sure, they might have fixed it now, but enemies that are too far away, you can see they're not being animated at all, but just sliding across the ground. They'll also just skip entirely all over the place. I will say as well, it's rare, but this even happens on close-up occasions too, as you can see here. This no doubt gives Xbox players the advantage and makes sniping for Switch players an almost unplayable option. I will sacrifice anything in graphics to get this piece of the game working smoothly, because that's personally my go-to, and it's just not up to standard yet. Look, overall, Vigor is fun. I love the concept and the gameplay loop of, you know, loot and escape and just repeat, with a side piece of shooting that is completely optional. Honestly, is really addictive. Sadly though, right now there's some questionable design issues here, from the draw distance for sniping that just isn't up to standard and makes Xbox players, I'd say, particularly lethal in this sense, to the monetization that essentially creates an insurance buffer between players. For the price, if you do intend to spend money in this free-to-play world, it's not bad, honestly. It gives you a nice start to your journey with some cosmetics, a few weapons, and then a nice little batch of crowns. The question really is though, can you see yourself sticking with it, and is this the only way you can play? Because honestly, if you have, you know, access to an Xbox, there's no reason why you would choose the Switch version right now, you know, and I'm just being honest here, but it's free there, it runs better, and it looks better. It's not a bad port, but perhaps throwing us on the battlefield, at least at the beginning with the Xbox community, wasn't the best idea after all. No score for this one today. I think you got to weigh up the pros and cons of the price point yourself, and also the issues. For me, it's a big deal because I play Sniper. For you, you might hate playing Sniper, and it kind of gets rid of that issue to a certain extent. If you don't buy it now, give it a go when it is free to play later in the year, because even with the problems, I can say I still had a lot of fun, and it works docked, and actually especially handheld, it makes it look a whole lot nicer. Plus, it's free. You got nothing to lose at that point, except for a bit of, you know, internet data. Thanks for watching. As always, I want to give a quick shout out to the patrons of the channel who are supporting SwitchCorner. Truly is appreciated. It makes a huge difference. And yeah, if you want to check it out for yourself, I've linked it in the description below. With that though, hit subscribe if you love the Switch as much as we all do here. Join our growing family, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.